Hello, hello. Welcome, folks. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Candace. Hey, Donna. Hey, John. We're going to get started in a few minutes, but feel free to drop in the chat where you're calling from. Welcome, welcome. We're so excited to have you all here. Welcome, Penny. Welcome, Frankie. Thanks so much for joining us today, y'all. Welcome, Donna. All right, we still got some folks trickling in, so we'll get started in just a moment.
Alrighty. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Kyra. I'm the Director of Communications and Systems at Mid-Hudson Energy Transition. Just a few quick housekeeping things before we get started. We will have Q&A. Q&A is enabled, so if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section. We also do have a few QR codes that are sprinkled in throughout the presentation, so have your phone handy if you want to grab a quick grab of those. And finally, we'll be recording this webinar, so you can access it later, send it to a friend, and we'll be sure to upload it to our website and send it all to you via email as soon as we have it in hand. So without further ado, I'm super excited to introduce our Executive Director, Jasmine Graham, who will be leading the webinar. Take it away, Jasmine.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyra. And thank you all for joining us here today. This is a big milestone for us. And today we are going to be talking about our model, what we call the MHET model here at Mid-Hudson Energy Transition. We've built something that's integrated, community-centered, and focused on energy justice, and we're really excited to share it with you all. So this is happening in the wake of our 2025 Impact Report launch. We are so incredibly excited about this. Please do take the time to read it. We're going to go through a lot of the highlights today, but this is such a monumental moment, and 2025 was such a huge year for us. So please do read the report, take the time because we put a lot of time into it. And you absolutely cannot talk about the impact that we're having here without all of the people behind the impact. So I want to take a second to shout out our amazing staff. Each and every one of these people has contributed to everything that we've done, and we are so appreciative. So thank you, team. So, why this webinar? We have built something that we are so proud of, and we are really ready to open up, share our process, share with people the lessons learned, and not just the outcomes or the impact measurements associated with it. For us, when knowledge is shared, you're also sharing power. And we believe that in sharing our model, other folks can take the parts that work for them and build really exciting things. So, we want to scale this model. We know that there are really impactful and creative and innovative parts to it. And so we're going to take you through all of our programs, starting with our approach, what each program actually looks like in practice, the real people and the real stories behind it, and then the difference that each of our programs has made. But before I do that, I would love to tell you guys a little bit about Mid-Hudson Energy Transition, or MHET as we abbreviate it here. MHET, we've been around for almost 5 years, but we've actually had staff and been building programs for 3 years. So we're a very new organization, and everything that you see today, we really have built in about 2.5 years. Our mission is to empower communities to own and share renewable energy, create healthier buildings, and join in community wealth building in order to strengthen the resilience of the Hudson Valley in the face of climate change. And our vision is really focused on every Mid-Hudson resident having local, renewable, and affordable energy, community control being institutionalized and people having a say in their energy future, having homes and businesses that are free from fossil fuels and toxins, and ultimately every individual having the freedom to stay or to migrate. And our approach really focuses on people first. At the end of the day, we have climate goals to meet, but it is about the people, the real people that are seeing material improvements to their lives. And our approach is to tackle climate change holistically. You can't separate the climate crisis from the housing, economic, and energy and health crises that we're also going through. And so often, sustainability and equity are pitted against each other, but here we don't treat those as competing goals, but rather inseparable ones. And so these are our values and our guiding principles. And we actually took the time to define each of these values for ourselves. So we know that our work is entirely centered on energy justice, energy democracy, cooperation, prosperity, innovation, and resilience. And we took the time to really say, what does that mean to us? So, for example, for energy justice, for us, that means prioritizing the populations that have been historically harmed by fossil energy systems, like Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, low-income communities, and renters. And we are headquartered in Kingston, New York, in the Hudson Valley of New York, about 2 hours north of New York City and 1 hour south of Albany. And why Kingston? Well, 70% of all households here in Kingston are classified as disadvantaged or low income by the state. More than half of the homes were built before 1939. So we're not dealing with decades of disinvestment, but really centuries. In our three priority census tracts, there's a high concentration of Latino, Hispanic, and BIPOC folks. And really importantly, Kingston had a very strong political will for environmental action. We have a really close relationship with the city government, with the sustainability department, and there was a desire for these programs. Kingston also has a really strong community fabric and community network, which really helps our ability to make inroads with these communities. But at the same time, they're significantly threatened by gentrification. And the last reason why we chose Kingston is that there's robust regional philanthropy that allowed us to be really creative in how we were going to address these issues, and to be ambitious in our solutions. So these are our initiatives. First, we have outreach and community education. We've got our energy innovation programming, which encompasses community solar work. We have our home upgrade grants program, or HUG. And we have our home energy loan program, which is abbreviated to HELP, and our associated HELP fund. And we're going to go through each of them. So everything that we do starts with outreach and community engagement. Our approach has truly been centered on meeting communities where they already are. So our fully bilingual outreach team has gone out and met the community at food pantries and places of worship, laundromats, the places where people already are. We had over 1,800 conversations this year that built all of our programs. We have a community council that guides our work, and we make sure that when we are conducting outreach, when we're conducting community education, we are approaching folks with humility, consistency, and trust, because we know once you break that, it's very difficult to get it back. And all of those conversations that we had, about 69% of folks were Black, Indigenous, Latino, Asian American, and Pacific Islanders, who we know already carry the greatest energy burdens, have the highest climate risk, and typically the least access to clean energy solutions. I mentioned that we have a community council, and this year we had a 9-member community council that you can see on the right. We are so excited and grateful to these folks who have showed up every single month to meet with us about each one of our particular programs, answer guided questions, help us to design programs that are responsive to community needs. We offer free food, childcare, a monthly stipend, and a quote from one of our participants I really appreciate that says, "I'm drawn to the participatory nature of this work. Energy is something I think about a lot, and I'm tired for corporations to make changes." And so are we. And so what this outreach and community education actually looked like for us was 97 events attended across the Mid-Hudson Valley. which averaged to about one event every 4 days, and 70 partnerships that we established across the region. And you can see the disbursement of all of the communities that we conducted outreach in this year. Even though we're primarily focused in Kingston, there's been so much demand that we've been going outside of that. But outreach doesn't just stop at a tabling event. It's not just a moment of clipboarding. For us, it's about the real people that have benefited from us being there. And in one case, we had someone come to us that had $11,000 of utility debt, and they had an imminent shutoff notice. It was an incredibly difficult position for them to be in. They were out of work. They felt overwhelmed by losing heat, and by trying to navigate this web of programs that are meant to help people, but inevitably are too difficult to actually use. And so we worked with him over the course of actually like weeks and months to get him a deferred payment agreement with Central Hudson. We also were able to connect him with a emergency payment, an $800 grant that allowed him to get $0 down, $10 monthly payments, and a $100 monthly discount. But ultimately, and most importantly, preventing the home from being shut off from heat and power. So, as I said, we built real and tangible trust. We met people where they are. We listened, and it led to families actually inviting us into their homes, having difficult conversations about the energy challenges that they're facing, and signing up for our program. So, our phenomenal outreach team here, Emmy, John, and Erin, enrolled over 350 households in our programs this year. They stopped 2 service shutoffs and enrolled 23 households in Central Hudson's Bill Discount program. So, up next is our Home Upgrade Grants program, or HUG. And we call it HUG because we always say that we provide wraparound technical assistance to folks. And really, this is about working with the hardest cases. So many times in the policy world, people will say hard to reach populations. Every single person that we serve meets the low income threshold. And we have found that while these projects are complex, they're not necessarily um, hard in the way that people talk about it. So our approach has really been focused on supporting families toward decarbonization, understanding that the low-income communities of color that we serve don't have the resources today or have a backlog of so many health and safety or structural issues in their home that they're not necessarily ready for decarbonization today, but we can help them to make meaningful steps to get there. And so this year we completed 64 home upgrade projects. It's more than triple what we had completed the year before. And the core, even though this is the home upgrade grants program, the core of this program is that we offer completely free, no cost project management to support families in their decarbonization journey. It doesn't matter if they're dealing with a health and safety issue, if they're looking for weatherization services, if they need a new heat pump, no matter what the project that they bring to us about a home energy upgrade is, we will project manage it for free, connect them to contractors, and manage the whole process. On top of that, our home upgrade grants are direct funding to these low income families to remove any barriers that prevent the project from moving forward. And so, oftentimes, whether it's outdated wiring, mold, safety issues, families are prevented from qualifying for larger incentives. And so, we use our grants to cover the gap and unlock oftentimes thousands of additional dollars in public funding. And here's what that looks like. Across 64 projects last year, we did 74 measures, 28 heat pump water heater upgrades, 23 induction stoves, 13 weatherization, 6 panel upgrades, 3 health and safety projects, and 1 air source heat pump. And over here is really where this magic happens. We are learning so well how to braid various resources, incentives, and grants. So we spent $51,000 in our own MHET home upgrade grants that we gave out to homeowners. But in doing that, we unlocked over $30,000 of utility incentives, over $130,000 of NYSERD incentives, and over $213,000 of ARPA money, which led to a total investment in Kingston Homes over last year of $426,000, which meant, and this is the part that I think really blew all of our minds, for every dollar that we spent, we were able to unlock $7.34 of public funding for our participants. And here's a story that I would love for you to hear right from our participant, Anne.
We basically found ourselves confronted with a non-working boiler. And when you don't have a lot of money, something like that hits different. We have two space heaters. They have kept it comfortable in here, but they've been expensive to run. There was a NYSERDA program that was supposed to help people become more energy efficient. The blower door test results showed that this house was not tight enough to meet the state standard for heat pumps. Another person came and did another blower door test. All the weatherization had taken the house from 20 air exchanges per hour to 9 air exchanges per hour, but it needed to be at 7 for the state to take action.
So we jumped in this case because after 2 years of using only space heaters and deserved heat. And so MHET paid for this out of pocket. This was our one heat pump case from last year. And we were able to switch out this broken, dirty furnace to high efficiency, top of the line, cold climate heat pumps for Anne and keep her warm ever since January of last year. So ultimately, this year we served 104 participants across 52 households. Seven of those were renters, one was a place of worship, and 69% of all of these projects were in disadvantaged communities. 42% had folks in the home with disabilities or health challenges. 38% were BIPOC, 31% seniors in the home, and 35% children in the home. And we're really proud of that. We're really proud of intentionally prioritizing the folks that have been harmed and that have been left out from so many incentive programs and opportunities. And so here are some of the quotes from folks on the difference that it made. I honestly thought I was never going to be able to get a hot water heater in my home due to the cost. So this felt like such a luxury to be able to do this in my home. You know, we have folks saying we're all living paycheck to paycheck. We can't afford nice things like this. Or enjoying our newly cozy home this morning. Unless you've lived through a winter and a half without central heating, you can hardly imagine. There was just a constant level of stress that's now just gone. It's wonderful. And of course, in looking at this, you look at the stories and the people, but we are a climate justice org, and so we do care about the greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with this. So on the left, you'll see an assortment of our decommissioned gas or highly outdated electric stoves. And in our appliance campaigns between induction stoves and heat pump water heaters, you'll see that we are expecting over the next 10 years of those appliances to offset 160,000 plus metric tons of CO2 from our induction stove campaign and over 232,000 metric tons or sorry, actually pounds of CO2 in from our heat pump water heater campaigns. But still, even with robust outreach, even with a home upgrade grant program that is offering completely free project management and grants, even with all of the braiding that we do, there's still a funding gap. And so we created a loan program, the Home Energy Loan Program, or HELP. So, as I said, HELP is meant to fill a financing gap for the households that still can't afford essential home upgrades despite all of the available incentives. HELP breaks down barriers by providing 2% interest loans or 2% APR loans that require no minimum credit score, no lien on your home, no personal guarantees, no collateral. We designed this loan program intentionally to include the people that have been traditionally excluded by conventional lending and financial systems and really make it possible for every single person to afford the work that needs to get done in their homes. And in our first 3 months, we launched this on September 30th of last year. We did close on our first two loans last year in 2025. And so how we did that? Well, first we used some interesting financial tools. We were able to secure an interest rate buy down from a philanthropic partner. We also were able to partner with our state energy agency, NYSERDA, on a $500,000 loan loss reserve. And we have a rainy day fund, also philanthropically funded, because to this next point that we have here, we are really taking a carrot approach, not stick. So if somebody has a hardship and needs to miss a month payment, we can pull from the rainy day fund so that they don't get behind on their bill with us, and so that we don't impact their credit negatively. We also are establishing incentives for on-time payments. So every 3 months that you pay your loan back on time, you're going to get $25 in our local currency called the Hudson Valley Current. And then we also have a bunch of support for financial hardship. So, if whether it's a short-term or a long-term hardship that arises, we have actually a few different mechanisms that we can use to shift people's loans and make it manageable for them. And this is really possible through a partnership ecosystem. So MHET is a community-based organization. We designed this, but we are also partnering with a local bank who is administering the loans for us. We're partnering with philanthropy, who, as I said, provided some of the key financial tools, and then government through the loan loss reserve and through NYSERDA. And so, as I said, this is not traditional banking. This is what we are calling empathetic banking. And this is a quote from our first borrower that said, "This program is exactly what working families in Kingston need. I wanted to upgrade my insulation for years and help made it possible. The monthly payment was manageable for my budget, and MHET helped me through every step." Because remember, in addition to this loan, we project manage the entire thing for folks. So here's an example of some of the things that can be financed. Energy efficiency, renewable energy, battery storage, those types of things can be up to 100% of the loan. So solar panels, EV chargers, insulation, windows, anything on the left side. And then up to almost half of the loan can be used for health and safety. So structural repairs, mold and moisture remediation, which is one that we see a lot of, lead and asbestos, ventilation improvements, etc. Um, it's not an exhaustive list, but this is a good look at how we kind of structure this. And so here's Ethel, our first borrower, who lived in Kingston for 43 years. She inherited her home from her mom. And, insulation was something that she wanted for a long time. But if any of you, have tried to get quotes on your own, you'll see it's incredibly expensive. And so, through a combination of grants, the public assistance, and the loan, Ethel was able to move forward and with these resources and get insulation in her home. And so here's the difference that it made in 2025. As a reminder, we launched basically in October. So we closed on two loans. We have 5 projects scoped in pre-qualification and 28 more families on the wait list. Now, the home energy loan program is lending out money. And so you might say, where the heck is the money coming from? Well, in order to finance our innovative home energy loan program, we started the Hudson Valley's first green community investment fund, sourcing capital for the loan program directly from our community. And we've called it the Help Fund. So, our approach here is really having a blended capital model that allows anybody to put money into this fund that is used to make people's homes safe and energy efficient and healthy. So, what are called non-accredited investors can participate. That means everyday people. Every single person on this webinar, if you live in New York, you can be a non-accredited investor investing in our fund, but also accredited investors. So think impact investors, angel investors, as well as philanthropic and corporate partners. Banks and foundations have all contributed to our fund so far, and we have $687,000 in the fund as of the end of 2025. And I will say we are over 700,000 now. So we're still making great progress and we're very excited. So last year we raised about $450,000. You can see the breakdown between our different investment notes. And these are what these investment notes actually look like. So non-accredited investors, everyday people, can put as little as $100 into this fund, get a 4% annual return for a 2-year term. Mission investors, so that would be accredited investors, institutions. These are folks that have large endowments or a high number of assets, can put in a minimum of $25,000 into the fund. This one in particular is geared toward philanthropy and program related investments called PRIs. And this has a 0% return over a 10-year term. However, at the end of it, you get your full investment back. And then we have impact notes that are also for those accredited investors and institutions with a $5,000 minimum, a 3% annual return over 5 years. And so every investment that you make is funding these home upgrades. It's putting more money into our local spending and our local contractors and building stronger communities and businesses right here in the Hudson Valley. So we often, when we talk about real people and real stories, these are a few of our investors. So Mark C says, I want my investments to have a local impact on the issues I care about, like climate change and environmental justice. I think it's better than having my money sit in an index fund helping some billionaire get even richer. And Ulster Savings Bank, who's our loan administration partner, said this program represents an innovative approach to community-based lending and that they're honored to help administer these loans that are lowering energy costs, improving housing quality, and building financial stability for our neighbors. And finally, Clay said, and this is a really exciting one for us because Clay is not just a community investor, but Clay was also nominated and voted into a board seat to represent all of the community investors. And so Clay started as a community investor and is now a board member. And Clay says the fund feels like a way of putting my money where my values are. I don't think that investing my limited resources in the stock market is bringing much benefit back to my local economy, community, or ecology. Actually, it really bums me out and feels gross. But the opportunity to invest in this local project that aligns with my values makes me feel excited. And so this is really what we talk about a lot. When you put your money in a big bank, it's going to fossil fuels. It's going to the military industrial complex. It's going to the prison industrial complex. It's going to deforestation. When you put your money in a local fund, be it the help fund or any other local economy, mechanism, you are funding impact right where you live. And in this case, you're funding climate impact, you're funding health impact, wealth building, and housing justice. You're keeping people in their homes, making their homes healthier, preventing displacement, helping them build resilient assets. A home is only valuable if you manage the upkeep, which so many people can't do. And of course, you're lowering greenhouse gas emissions that are poisoning our climate. And so we've talked a lot about the immediate programs that we've built that, every single one of our programs were completely designed with the community and based on what we heard from them we needed. Energy innovation is where we really look to take it further. Now, our short-term approach has been lowering energy costs through community solar. Community solar, while it's been around for a long time now, it is not something that people would necessarily deem to be innovative anymore, but it's still one of our strongest tools for expanding renewable energy access. This year we had 300 community solar signups. 267 of those 300 signups, or about 89%, qualified for a 20% discount rate because they were in a government assistance program for low income folks. And so 89% of those 300 households that we signed up are getting that 20% discount rate over the 20-year life of this solar project. And here are our community solar subscriptions over the past few years. We started with Kingston Community Solar and enrolled 261 folks. followed by Mid-Hudson Community Solar, which was our first 20% discount project, and then Mid-Hudson Community Solar topping out with 300 folks. And here's another one of those stories that shows that, outreach is not just about sitting at a table and watching people pass by. What started as just trying to get a signature, in this case, turned into hundreds of dollars in savings for someone who signed up for community solar. So in this case, Emiliano, right here on the right, and this is John, was working with someone who was missing just one signature in order to sign up for community solar. And Emmy went to this person's house at 5 p.m. because it's the only time that they said that they could meet. Emmy ended up staying until 8 p.m., explaining the program, explaining other sources of assistance, and signing this person up for the energy affordability program, which ended up saving them an additional $90 per month on top of their monthly discount from community solar. And when you think about the difference it made, I mentioned before that the discount rate is up to 20% on our Mid-Hudson Community Solar. While these savings numbers only go to mid-year of last year, we have saved people $22,000 so far. It's definitely higher than that, but that's, there's always billing delays in getting this kind of data. So we'll be sure to keep folks updated. And we've offset 2.5 million pounds of CO2. 2.5 million. So for us, while there's so much value, and this is actually the Lodestar project that for Kingston Community Solar, and we got to go to the ribbon cutting. But the real difference that it made here is tangible relief for our neighbors. 20 years of guaranteed monthly savings. On the other hand, our long-term approach to energy innovation is really having a just and a democratic renewable energy transition. This year, we interviewed and held meetings, hour-long meetings, with 19 subject matter experts across North America who are building or planning thermal energy networks to inform a potential thermal energy network here in Kingston. We also continued our research and our partnership building on innovative projects like agrivoltaics, which is solar and agriculture being used together on one piece of land, small scale hydropower, and a lot of the innovations around that, as well as things like virtual power plants and demand response. But as I said, everything that we've done has been done with community input, and this is exactly the same. We would never move forward on any of these projects if we didn't hear from the community that it's what they want, it's what they need. And so we launched in the fall a participatory planning project, which is a mouthful. We didn't name it, but we are meeting with and conducting surveys and doing a pretty long form analysis of what the community would like to see in their local renewable energy transition. So, towards the end of last year, we got 29 of our first surveys in. And here's what some of the early results looked like. We're, I think, up to like 40 or 50 surveys now. But generally, we were starting to see in the very early days that people did feel moderately familiar with climate change solutions. But when it came to energy, we were starting to see a much more bleak response from people, strongly disapproving of our local utility, our local investor-owned utility. And when it came to energy questions, people feeling like they weren't sure, even though they felt like they understood or were familiar with climate change solutions, weren't really sure what they could do locally to change things. And here are some of the long form answers that we got in our first survey. Someone says, they're wondering how they will financially survive after spending so many years as an activist and nonprofit person as they move into their 60s with no real retirement, wondering if I will have to work until I'm dead to support my modest lifestyle. She says, I took a bet a long time ago that we as a country would be moving in a much different direction and that my skills and knowledge and education would have real financial value, and I came up on the wrong side of this bet. And I think that's a common thing that we're feeling from people. They're feeling particularly left behind in their later years, which is, I think, is why we spend a lot of time working with seniors too. And another quote from those surveys was, I think what MHET is doing is one of the best things possible to do, giving people the knowledge and funding to be able to complete projects that will not only affect their utility bills, but also be easier on the environment. They say more funding and more widespread advertising of these programs is what we need, and we agree with that. So overall, when we're looking at Mid-Hudson energy transition and what we've done, we have built energy programs that work for real people, not the best case scenario, not the most well-resourced person, but for the average person that is concerned about their bill, that, hasn't been able to make the upgrades that are needed, that wants to support the climate but doesn't know where to start and feels totally lost in a system of or a sea of programs. So for us, it always comes down to these things. We address these problems holistically. Did I want this to be the organization that project managed, gave out loans, ran a community investment fund, and is looking to build renewable energy projects? Not really, but all of these problems are so intertwined. The solutions to them have to be also. We could not and we would not be as successful if we were an organization that solely subscribed people to community solar or solely project managed these projects or only ran a community investment fund or only ran a loan program. It's the fact that we do all of this together and that we can have such robust coordination internally that makes this model work. The other thing that makes our work different is we truly and really prioritize equity. We are constantly thinking about who is the most vulnerable person, who is, the person that has been left behind the most, and how do we help that person? If we can design programs for that hardest case, right, for the most complex, most barrier ridden, then we know that we can also have this program work for the folks that have less barriers. Um, Another piece here is we defer to the community. And that language is really intentional. It comes from something called the spectrum of community engagement, and it is the utmost or like highest level of community engagement is actually deferring to the community. Not, oh, we informed the community or we collaborated with them or we hosted a workshop or a panel, but actually we have nixed parts of our program. We have canceled things when we got feedback from our community council that they didn't think it was a good idea. We actually not just listen to our community, but our action is determined by what we're hearing. And we've designed this so that we can scale very rapidly. Everything that you saw today, we've piloted in Kingston, but we're ready to bring it to other municipalities. And I tell people all the time, I say, we are mid-Hudson energy transition. We are not New York energy transition. We are not United States energy transition. We are mid-Hudson energy transition. And so we know that we can do this work in our backyard, but MHET wouldn't be the right organization to build something like this in Syracuse or in Buffalo or in New York City, right? The people are different, the landscape is different, the organizations, the systems, the networks, all of those things are different. And the people who already live and work in those areas are the best position to bring this type of model to their community. Where we want to scale is in the Mid-Hudson Valley, the 7 counties that we cover. But beyond that, we really want to be able to teach other people about our model and to share the tools and the resources and the lessons that we've learned. We have on our blog, there's a stories and tools section where we share anecdotes and lessons learned and things of that nature. And we're really at a point where we're saying, wow, this is working really well. We want other people to know about it. And honestly, we think other people need to know about it because we think that there's so much exciting stuff and lessons in this. So, with all that being said, thank you so much for coming. We will open it up for a Q&A, so you don't have to worry about going home without getting your questions answered. But before we do, please do stay in touch with us. Here we have a QR code to sign up for our newsletter. We only send it out monthly, so once a month you could get the newsletter. We're not going to be bombarding your email box. Please, please consider supporting our work, donating. Donations and philanthropy are what make this work possible. And then lastly, and maybe wait until we're done with the Q&A, but please do fill out this survey and tell us what you thought of this webinar at the end. Um, so thank you all so much. I'm just getting caught up on the chat, but we can go ahead and take some questions.
I think there was one question about plug-in solar, but maybe that can link into the development and further growth of MHET's programs and how you see maybe expansion in energy innovation.
Absolutely. So, I'm too much of an energy nerd because now I'm like, well, what did they say about plug-in solar? Um, I am probably gonna dig in the chat and try to find that. But what I would absolutely say is, is that we're excited about so many innovations. Plug-in solar is one that's interesting. For those who haven't heard about it, there are solar panels now, small scale solar panels that you can put up on your balcony or in your window, and you can plug it into your outlet, and it will actually bring the renewable solar energy into your home through your outlet. There's regulations and other things that will be barriers. We have to make it safe and all these other things. But we're so excited about things like that, right? At the core of it, we believe that the renewable energy transition needs to be decentralized, right? So not just massive community solar farms or utility scale solar, but we also need to have this decentralized strategy where we have solar in each neighborhood or on each block, microgrids and things of that nature. But as I said, until the community tells us this is what we want, this is what we need, we're not actually moving forward. We're researching thermal energy networks and agrivoltaics, but our participatory planning process will really guide us and show us where to go. Are there any other questions? Oh, I see something else. Okay, and I am seeing, yeah, now I'm seeing the plug-in solar, and excited by that.
We have one wondering if we will do any follow-up webinars to go into more detail about how we developed each program.
That's a great question. We're 100% open to it. I think in the survey, I actually think that we ask if you like this webinar, if you want us to do more, if you want us to go in depth and break down different parts of our work. Each program could have a whole like course written about it, much less its own webinar. So I would definitely say that we're open and we want to share this learning in as many forums as people are willing to accept it. So whether it's a webinar, whether it's coming to, speak at your event, whether it's meeting with a program director, setting our program directors up with your program director, we want to make this information open source for folks. And I see here a webinar to teach the empathetic model and a PowerPoint or white paper. I love that. And we've been working internally on what it means to document and put out all of the information on particularly the home energy loan program because it is so involved. But not so involved that you shouldn't try to start one yourself. We'll help you.
And we have a two-parter about the HELP program. The first question was taken by Rosalie in the chat, which was about expansion. But following up on that, is there a timeline for how the current pilot phase is working? and how long it will last before you move into phase two or expansion, and looking to collaborate.
Absolutely. Love that. We love collaboration. Um, our pilot is set to end around summer, and then moving into expansion post summer, which is kind of vague. Um, but I would say that our home upgrade grants team and the project management around it is really the anchor for so many of the other programs. And so getting our outreach and our hug team in other localities will be what enables us to also bring help and the help fund. And I will say that the help fund is the piece of the work that you don't have to be local to support. As I said, anyone in New York can invest in the help fund or can donate in the help fund, and still be moving the needle for New York climate. But in terms of the home energy loan program, we really like to marry that with the hug program and bring those to a new locality together. No problem, Frankie. Well, I will just say thank you all so much for attending. And we can let a few more questions trickle in. But what I will really say is this is a huge amount of work that we have all put in together. We are so, so, so proud of what we've built. And so anything that folks here can do to share our model, to connect us to other organizations or other funders or other, media or journalists, anything to get the word about this, word out about this would be so, so helpful. There's a million people working on energy, but only the smallest fraction of that are really building true energy justice models. Ones that marry the values with the action, that don't just walk the walk but talk the talk. And I really will say that in every way that we can, we try to walk the walk. And we really know and believe that this model is, hopefully the future for many other organizations that are not MHET, right? We can teach you how to build a community investment fund. We can teach you how to build a loan program. We can connect you to our pro bono lawyers that helped with so much of that. But yeah, I would just say thank you guys so much. And I just love the comments. Thank you, Jazak. Oh, so good to see you here. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Uh, y'all gonna make me cry. uh, thank you. Take care, everyone.